Happy New Year! I hope everyone had a safe and joyful time celebrating with everyone that you know and love. It's been a rough year, but we made it through it, so let's hope that 2022 is the best year ever. With the celebration of the new year, it's time to look back one last time for all of the movies that we watched throughout the year, and specifically that I watched and that I resonated with the most, to give you my top 10 best movies of 2021. Now, in no way do I think that this is the objective list, that is the only one that you can go to, the essential list to go off of for the best movies of the year. No, this is all subjective. This is my opinion, and these are the films that resonated with me the most. Before I give my top 10, I'm also going to have a few honorable mentions to go over real quick, just briefly to discuss what I thought about those movies that also impacted me, but just not as much as the top 10 in this video. Most importantly though, as always, I need you guys to go down below in the comments and let me know what your top 10 films of 2021 were, because this was a pretty good year for movies. Not the best in the world, but especially compared to 2020, the drought there, the lack of anything spectacular that we had there was quite a few films that really impressed me here and really tugged at the heartstrings or made me very impacted in one way or another. So I'm excited to get into my list, and I can't wait to see what you guys picked as well. Bo Burnham's Inside was a perfect exploration of the existentialism that we were going through during the midst of the pandemic. In particular, Bo Burnham and his crisis as he was stuck in his house with all the creative juices flowing, and he had to figure out an avenue to explore that and to get those emotions out, but in a way that resonated with what he's best known for. Everything about this project is because of the brilliance of Bo Burnham. I think it's absolutely hilarious. It's heartwarming. It can be extremely dark and edgy, but it's real, and that's what I appreciate about it most, is how authentic it stays the entire way through. Zack Snyder's Justice League is what happens when a group of dedicated, loyal fans on the internet come together for years on end to prove that this director needs an opportunity to express his vision. And I think that's why I love this movie so much, is that yes, it takes a lot of the same material that we already got in Justice League from 2017, but it fully fleshes out that vision and gives Zack Snyder an entire sandbox to explore what he originally wanted to tell. They gave him the budget, they gave him the time and the resources to fully expand on that, and what we ended up with is a project that feels so full of love and so precise to what he always wanted to show the world. And I had a blast in this 4-hour epic. It's the longest movie I've ever seen. I was never bored. I was consistently entertained, and I can't wait to keep going back and back and watching this over and over and over again. It's one of the films that I specifically wish would have been given the treatment of a theatrical release, because this movie would have looked absolutely breathtaking on the big screen. The Mitchells vs. Machines is my favorite animated film of the year, one of the most heartwarming, dedicated, and just lovely films that the whole family can enjoy. It definitely explores that realm of how our devices in this world of social media has really disconnected us from our family and the outside world and having those same connections that we once had. It also has this very mature way of portraying this father-daughter relationship that is being strained because of the screens in their faces, and how that can be complicated, and the way that they work to grow things and make things better throughout. It's a family film at the end of the day, not only because it's made for families, but it's about a family learning to grow closer together even when the world around them is calling them in so many different directions. On top of that, it's brought to us from the same creative team that gave us Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and with that we get some of the best visuals and animation of the entire year. It's a joy to watch, and it really is just a pleasing film that puts a big smile on your face by the end of it. West Side Story represents Spielberg's best in years. It sweeps you up in a way that tells a story that is unlike anything that we get in today's day and age. It feels very timely, but it feels like it's an old soul. It's crafted by these people who grew up watching those classic 60s musicals, and it brought it to life in a way that you can't even tell the difference. It moves at a brisk pace, and it never slows down. It expertly builds the chemistry between our main leads, but also fleshes out the supporting characters and gives them unforgettable moments that make them standouts among the rest. It's got great set pieces, great production, great direction in every facet of the word from Steven Spielberg. It's the talk of the town, and deservedly so. But just coming short of the top 10 is A Quiet Place Part 2, a film that was somehow able to outdo its predecessor, because I love this film even more than the first, which I thought was impossible, because for the longest time I thought this film in general was unnecessary until I sat down in that theater and watched it, and by the end I was in tears and I was shaking in my boots, because John Krasinski was able to craft something that was so suspenseful, so intense and riveting, and it never lost your interest throughout. It kept you intrigued, it kept you invested into what direction they were going to take it. While it sucked not having John Krasinski in front of the camera, having more of his time devoted behind the camera, looking through the lens, he was able to craft so many unique shots that felt very Spielberg and early James Cameron. Just very unique, very, very incredible and effective. Not to mention, it continues to build on that excellent sound work throughout, and the way that even though we're now exposed to more of these creatures that we were not given much of a look of in the first film, it still maintains that same intrigue and that same appeal of not always being able to hear what's going on, whether that's perspective change between the characters, whether that's times to where they're forced to remain completely silent, or moments to where the sound is completely ramping up. It all works on every single level, and I was so pleased. For the longest time, this was my favorite movie of the year. It just got really good after this in terms of what was being released. Coming in at number 10 on my list is going to be In the Heights, the live action film adaptation of Lin-Manuel's claim to fame. I've always been a fan of the way that Lin-Manuel Miranda is able to mix the hip-hop with the musical theater. It's just really appealed to me. I've loved Hamilton, and I've loved the music from In the Heights, so getting to see it adapted to a film, I was beyond excited for. I also have a soft spot for it because this represented the first film that I was able to see early as press, as a member of the press, and it was in the same theater that a few years prior I saw The Gentleman in, after I got free tickets off of GoFobo, and I said then and there, I'm gonna be back here soon, able to see movies early, and so that was just a really cool experience for me. But then when you get into the movie, it's just a joy to watch. It has a soundtrack that makes you want to shout from the rooftops. It has a very charismatic group of characters and actors in the film, but it also just it makes you smile, it makes you laugh, it makes you happy, it makes you sad. It's got the full range of emotions there, and it's for the entire family, but it also is a great representation of the different cultures that it's trying to include throughout. And I think that if I love it, the people that it's representing in this film are definitely going to love it. You can just tell that a lot of love went into this movie and the making of it, and you can tell that Lin-Manuel Miranda was very proud of the results and the way that it came out, and I can't help to just put this on my list and recognize it, because it's definitely one of the films that I've watched the most this year, and the one of the films that I've connected with the most, hence why it's in my top 10. Coming in at number 9 on my list is going to be King Richard, which I would consider the feel-good movie of the year. This is a film that takes interesting choice of telling the lives of the way that Venus and Serena grew up, but from the perspective of their father, the one who was really the main factor in their success, in their growth, and pushing them to get to where he knew they were capable of being. Obviously now, Venus and Serena Williams are two of the greatest tennis players to ever do it, not just in the female area, but in the sport as a whole. But you see the responsibility and the great work ethic that was implemented into the lives of Venus Serena from a very young age, and Will Smith playing their father Richard was very, very set on making sure that they followed a specific standard and never expected less than what they deserved, and that was very, very cool to see. Now, it does have a tendency to show the negative sides of his processes, but that's what I like, because sometimes parents are willing to go to extreme lengths to give that success to their kids, get their kids the opportunity to live the life that they always wanted to live themselves, and that they hope that their kids can outlive them and do better than them. It shows the way that Richard Williams was actually mocked and ridiculed in the media for the way that he went about doing things, but then also it goes about the successes and it shows them in a great way. I think Will Smith gives obviously an Oscar nomination worthy performance here, but also the standout for me was Sanaya Sidney, who plays Venus Williams in this movie, a young new coming actress, but she stole every scene that she was in at the forefront. There's so much emotion here, there's so much heart, you can feel the love all the way throughout, and even with the downfalls, it highlights the major payoffs in the life of Richard Williams, how his tactics actually helped them and where they were able to to get today, obviously, and just overall, like I said, it's extremely uplifting, and it's a really film that shows that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And it's awesome to see that there are parental figures out there that stress so much time and importance in making their kids and helping them be the best possible version of themselves. This is a real life story, and obviously we know how it all worked out. It paid off, and that just makes it even more rewarding by the end of it. While King Richard might be the most uplifting film of the year, Mass is one that will rip your heart out and tear it to shreds. Fran Kranz, in his directorial debut, was able to craft a very simplistic film that is shot in basically one location about 4 parents sitting down around a table and really just letting it all out there, getting their emotions out there, talking about how they feel after a major tragedy. So many things are revealed throughout. So many characters have moments to just be extremely vulnerable and just let loose with their emotions, and it's heartbreaking. It's very hard to watch at times because of how realistic, how raw it always is, and it portrays grief in such a powerful way that I don't know if I've ever seen something like this so realistically portrayed. It deals with so many social and politically relevant issues in such a tasteful way while not really feeling like it needs to hold back whatsoever. It's not disrespectful, it's not insensitive, but at the same time, it's just as real as it possibly could be, and it almost feels very unscripted at times. Like all 4 of these actors are just sitting there and they're actually giving real accounts of these events that really happened, and the way that they are recalling all this information and the chain of events just feels very almost documentarian. Like filmmakers were like, here's a big issue going on, let's just press record and see how these people are able to flesh it out. And that's what this movie is. It is scripted, but it's scripted so personally and so on the nose and vividly that all of the emotion is expressed in the most beautiful, yet, like I said, heartbreaking and traumatic ways that I've ever seen. This film made its debut at Sundance, but then eventually got a release from Bleecker Street, and I feel like since it's had that limited theatrical run, a lot of people still have yet to see this movie, but it's one that if you can watch it on demand at any time, or if it's playing in a theater near you, go out and watch it, because it's definitely a cathartic experience. It's one that is very meditative, and it's hard to watch, but at the same time, it's necessary, I feel like, in a lot of ways. And even if the large masses aren't going to watch this movie, I feel like everyone who actually does take the time out of their day to sit down and watch this are going to be impacted in one way or another. Coming in at number 7 is Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry, a documentary that came out in February on Apple TV+. This might seem like an odd pick for you guys, but if you don't know, Billie Eilish is one of my favorite artists working today, and one of my favorites just in a long time period. But now getting this inside look at her life and seeing the personal side of things and the more human side of her that goes deeper than what the mainstream media portrays about her was very, very interesting. But I think it was done in such a raw and real way. It didn't really hold back anything. It didn't really try to sugarcoat stuff, and it really just let her be herself on camera. It shows her passion and her love for fans, as well as documenting the process of how her and her brother make music. But then it also takes a peek into those moments to where she does not feel like being a celebrity in the public eye. Like, she can do very minimal things, and it is ridiculed, it is criticized, and blown up all over the media out of proportion. There's so many aspects about a celebrity's life that is not always explored to this level of depth, but I felt like RJ Cutler crafted a documentary here that was so expressive and never really held back, and I appreciated that so much. And when it comes to celebrity documentaries, I feel like often they're extremely surface level, but here it really felt like you learned more and you found out a different side to her as a person. And as a fan of her already, it just made me appreciate her on a deeper level, and for that, I really respect that, and I loved what this documentary was able to do. Coming in at number 6 is The Green Knight from David Lowery, a filmmaker that I've been a fan of since I remember, and this is a film that explores more Arthurian lore, which is something that I'm not a big fan of. It's a subgenre of media that I tend to stay away from because often I find myself just bored or unentertained, but here it was a completely different story. Not only is Dev Patel an animal, and he leads this with such power and nuance, but I think it explores nobility in a way that is just unlike anything I've seen before and not normally explored to this amount of depth. The entirety of the film is pretty much one man's journey of finding himself. It dives into courage and cowardice and the things that come at you, the temptations that you are met with that you have to learn to overcome if you want to grow that sense of maturity. And it's also just questioning what is the importance and what is the true appeal of gathering this honor if it means losing your sense of self-respect and morals. Like, if you have to literally sacrifice everything that you stand for just to get this sense of leadership, then is any of it worth it? Like, it asks those questions that I think just dives a little bit deeper than a lot of the other stuff that I've seen explored, but at the same time, it's still able to just sweep you off your feet with its stunning visuals, and it gives you all these different elements of fantasy, but also realism, and it mixes those two together so well. It's a shame that this one went so underseen, but if you do have a chance to sit down and watch this one, I would recommend it wholeheartedly, because I think you'll enjoy yourself if you know what you're going in for. Also, if you're an A24 fan, this is one of their best in years. Kicking off the top 5 is going to be Come On, Come On, directed by Mike Mills, a film that completely swept me off my feet. I didn't know what I was going to get going into this film, and I didn't know what to expect by any means, but by the end, again, I had a smile on my face, but it was also so thought-provoking that I just sat there as the credits rolled, not only because it has a great way of mixing these monologues from children throughout the entirety of the credits, but also it's just the film explores humanity on such a deep level that it's very meditative and contemplative, and so it begs you to explore yourself a little bit deeper, which I appreciated. But ultimately, it tells a story about a man trying to learn to love deeper and a child who is going through this point in his life to where he has to learn and accept the fact that sometimes it's okay to not be okay. It highlights the beauty in the world around us, but it also makes a point to set aside time to discuss and explore those moments in life to where it just sucks and it's hard to wake up sometimes, and it's hard to embrace these facets of life that really just feel like they're punching you in the head. Like, there's nothing great about them, but it's just part of living, and we have to learn how to still find the joy and make the most out of every situation, even in those times where we don't even feel like doing anything at all. It also has a great way of mixing in these interviews with children, asking them what they hope to be when they grow up, what they want to see from this world, and how they hope that the universe and the environment evolves over time. And it's all just so honest, and it feels so naturally put together. Like, a lot of it feels very documentarian, but you can tell where the stuff is scripted. But I think a lot of it helps that Joaquin Phoenix and Woody Norman, who is the child actor in here, share some of the greatest chemistry that I've seen all year, and you buy their relationship as it grows over time. It's just very sincere and thoughtfully put together, and it really feels like a warm blanket just wrapping around you, because it's very comforting at the same time, even though it's not always talking about stuff that is very sunshine and rainbows. It gets deep, but that's what I appreciate about it. It just feels very real, and I need more movies like this in my life, because it just gives me a moment to really sit back and appreciate the hand that's been dealt to me, because life sucks sometimes, but you gotta embrace it as much as you can. Coming in at number 4 is Denis Villeneuve's Dune, a film that I was not looking forward to in the slightest, but when I came out of it, I was just completely blown away by the scope, the scale, and the story of how just dynamic it actually was, and how you really felt like, even though it had to spend a lot of time to introduce you into this world, it didn't feel like so much exposition. You felt like you were immersed, and you understood where all the characters were coming from, and you were on the same page of their motivations and where the story was progressing. And there were so many different lays of the land that it established, and the character motivations, and it all just felt very real. Denis Villeneuve has always been a visual storyteller when it comes to the great effects and the scale of everything, but he also took so much time to craft in-depth characters here. There's just a lot about this movie that I absolutely loved. On top of that, you have Hans Zimmer's score, which is absolutely electric and just totally blew the roof off the entire thing. I hope that this film wins a lot of awards, and I can't wait to see what the next part brings. Kicking off the top 3 is No Time to Die, the send-off for Daniel Craig's James Bond. I think this was the most tasteful and just satisfying swan song for Daniel Craig's tenure. Obviously, this is the James Bond that so many fans have gravitated to, and for good reason, because his stories have all felt like they're very interconnected and they have a bit more heart and a lot more to say than a lot of the other previous renditions of the character. And I felt extremely attached to Daniel Craig his entire tenure, and especially here, this contains more heart, more emotion than any of the previous entries. On top of that, it has some brilliant action set pieces and introduces characters even for a short time, like Ana de Armas as Paloma here, that they steal every scene and moment that they're in, but don't make you feel like they're necessary for the entire film, because it entirely stands on its own, and Daniel Craig is able to move around and carry this film from beginning to end. It also has an extremely compelling villain in Saffron, played by Rami Malek, which I think is a little bit too hated on because his motives to me seem very clear. He has that same sort of mentality of, to heal the world, you've got to take some of it away first, and it's messed up, but at the same time, you can tell that he's got reason and motive behind everything he's doing. And when the end comes, when the conclusion hits and they send off the character in the way that they do, it was emotional, it was heartbreaking, it was powerful. I was questioning if they were even actually gonna do it, but at the end of the day, this was known to be his last movie. I just couldn't believe that's how he was going out, but it was so rewarding and it felt so natural, and I couldn't think of a better way to end this version of the character's arc. It was just so well done. Kicking off the top two is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, nostalgia might be blinding my view a little bit, and that's okay, but I've seen this movie 4 times now, and every single time I do, it just solidifies the fact that this is one of my favorite Spider-Man films and one of my favorite films that the MCU has ever put out, just because to me it really represents what the character of Peter Parker is supposed to be, the evolution of him finally coming into that role of Spider-Man. And I think it's very poetic the way that he's able to find himself through other versions of the character, and also bringing in all of the different villains and aspects from the previous franchises into this one. It acts as a love letter to not only lifelong fans, but also just the franchise and the character as the whole, what Stan Lee crafted years ago and what still remains true today. It's got great action for the most part. The humor, while it still misses for me in some spots, it works more here than it has in the previous 2 Spider-Man MCU films. I also feel like there's a lot that works here in terms of character redemption, which I really appreciate. It's not perfect by any means, and it suffers from a lot of issues, especially in the first half, but as soon as it finds its footing, it never slows down, and it really just pleased me in every way I hoped it could have, and it was better, and it exceeded my expectations, and I'm just so thankful and happy that this movie exists, so I couldn't not include it on my best of 2021 list. But my favorite movie of 2021 is Tick, Tick, Boom, directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I mean, obviously, I'm wearing the t-shirt. Thank you to Netflix for sending this out to me. But this is a film that I didn't even cover on my channel. I didn't give it a separate review or its own individual video because I've seen it so many times, and for the beginning, every single time I watched it, it was very hard for me to express just how much it actually impacted me and how much I actually felt and how much it resonated with me, because it does tell a story of a real human being. It's the life of Jonathan Larson, portrayed beautifully by Andrew Garfield, but it also has such a special message behind it about the importance of chasing our dreams and the perseverance that comes with that, because there are going to be people who come in your life and tell you that you can't or you shouldn't do something because there is a more easy path laid out for you that will lead to that guarantee success, but it might not be something that you'll be happy doing for long periods of time. It pushes you to think about the importance of self-made success compared to the corporate America and that same ideology that so many people just get sucked into. But it also so brilliantly explores the complexities of balancing your relationships and your responsibilities with your passions, and somehow how you have to juggle that, but learning how to do it without just totally giving up on the thing that you feel like you were set on this earth to do. And that especially dives into Jonathan Larson, what he was going on with, as he was barely getting by. He was struggling to pay the bills, and he was losing some of the people that he held closest to him, but he never gave up on the passion. And it was just sort of that trade-off, and what do you hold more important, and some things you have to sacrifice to get where you want. And ultimately, it's just absolutely heartbreaking that he was someone who was so influential to musical theater and what happened, and he finally got this sense of success and this upward momentum, and then he passed away before he was able to reap the benefits of his success. So it's a heartbreaking story, but I will say that I think Andrew Garfield gives the best performance of the year. He totally embodies Jonathan Larson in the way that he walks, the way that he talks, the way that he sings. It also portrays just a great relationship between him and Robert DeJesus' character, who plays Michael in the film, his best friend. It all works so incredibly well, and it's got music that I could listen to nonstop every single day. You can tell the passion that went into this film, and you can tell the dedication that went into every single frame, every single song and detail. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, this being his directorial debut, I cannot wait to see what he does next, because especially tackling this realm that he's already so comfortable in, he could soar behind the camera, as he's already proven to be by far my favorite of the year, by far the film that surprised me the most but left the biggest impact. And I can't wait to watch this film again and again for years to come, because it's already one of my all-time favorites, and that says a lot. It just came out, but it's not recency bias. It's just that good, that inspirational, that moving, that impactful, that it's gonna stick with me forever. So there you have it, my friends. This is my top 10 favorite movies of 2021. I hope you guys enjoyed my list, and like I said, make sure to comment down below and let me know your favorite movies of the year, because I know our lists are going to be different, and even if we have some of the same films on our list, they might be in a different order, and that's completely okay, but I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for the support this past year. It really means a lot to me, and I appreciate you guys continuing to show up, and I can't wait to see what this next year has to offer, not only for movies, but for what the channel is able to do and what this community is able to build. I'm so excited. As always, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification to get notified every time I post a new video. Thank you so much, as always, for watching, and until next time, I'll see y'all later. Peace out.